The princess thought it was a game until she faced a living legend. The alarm did not ring, it screamed. Every light on the bridge of the Imperial cruiser Valorath flipped red at once. And Princess Mira Solen of the Keth Empire was already on her feet before the sound finished bouncing off the walls. She was 17 years old, heir to a throne that spanned 9-star systems, and she had never once been in actual danger. She was not afraid. She should have been. "Report," she said, using the voice her tutors had drilled into her since age 6. Calm, flat, commanding. The ship's senior officer, Admiral Vane, a thin man with silver ridges running down both temples, turned from his console. His face was wrong. Not panicked. Something worse than panic. Still. "Princess," he said. "We have a contact. Single vessel. Human configuration." The word landed in the room like something dropped from a great height. Human. Mira crossed the bridge in 6 steps and looked at the scan display herself. One ship, small, blocky in the way human ships always were, functional rather than elegant, the kind of design that suggested the builders cared more about what a thing did than how it looked. It was holding position 40,000 kilometers off their port side, not moving, not broadcasting any signal, just watching. "One ship," Mira said. "We have 14. "Yes, Princess. Then why does everyone on this bridge look like they've seen something come back from the dead?" Nobody answered. That was its own kind of answer. Mira turned to the communications officer, a young Keth woman with 4 arms, and the expression of someone who very much did not want to be doing her job right now. "Open a channel. Let's hear what they want." The channel opened with a soft click, silence. Then a voice came through, human, male, quiet in a way that somehow filled the room completely. "Princess Mira Solen. My name is Garrett Cole. I am the commander of the vessel you're currently scanning. I'd like to ask you a question before this goes any further." Mira leaned forward slightly. "You know who I am." "I do." "Then you know you're speaking to the heir of the Keth Empire. 14 warships surround you, Commander Cole. You are in no position to ask anything." A pause. Brief. Not nervous, thoughtful. "I'm aware of your 14 ships," Cole said. "I want to ask my question anyway. Are you here because you ordered your fleet to cross into the drift corridor, or did someone give you bad information about whose space this is?" Mira felt something tighten behind her eyes. The drift corridor. A stretch of space that the Keth Empire had claimed formally 3 years ago in the expansion declaration, unopposed, unchallenged. The humans had said nothing at the time. They had filed a protest through diplomatic channels and gone quiet. Mira had been told by 3 different advisors that the protest was ceremonial, that the humans were declining population, shrinking influence, no longer a meaningful military force, that the drift corridor was already as good as Keth territory. She looked at Admiral Vane. He was not looking back at her. "The drift corridor," she said carefully, "is Keth space. It has been Keth space since the expansion declaration." "No," Cole said, "it hasn't. The declaration was filed unilaterally. It was never recognized by Earth's interstellar authority, and the corridor falls inside the buffer zone established under the Harrow Accords of 2271. Your legal team knew this. Someone decided to bring you here anyway." The bridge was very quiet. Mira felt something cold move through her chest. Not fear, suspicion. She turned slowly and looked at Admiral Vane again. This time he was looking at the floor. "Admiral," she said softly. He said nothing. "Admiral Vane. Did you know about the Harrow Accords when you set this course?" Still nothing. Garrett Cole's voice came back through the channel. Still quiet, still unhurried. "Princess, I don't have a quarrel with you. I have a quarrel with the people who put a 17-year-old girl in the middle of a territorial provocation and told her it was a routine inspection tour. That's not your fault. But right now I need you to understand something clearly. I am not going to let your fleet proceed further into the corridor. Not because I can't, because I won't. And I'd rather resolve this without anyone getting hurt." Mira stared at the scan display. One ship. One. Against 14 Keth warships, each carrying enough firepower to crack a small moon. One ship, and its commander was speaking to her like he was the one with the advantage. She turned back to Vane. "How many people does he have?" Vane finally looked up. His expression was the most honest she had ever seen on him, because it was afraid. "One, Princess. Commander Cole operates alone." The room went quiet again in a different way this time. Not tense. Stunned. "One ship. One man." "What is he?" Mira asked. Vine opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "He is," Vine said slowly, "what humans call a warden. There were once 47 of them. They were given certain modifications, enhancements, created during the border wars to operate independently in deep space without support." "Were," Mira said. "How many are there now?" Vane looked like the word cost him something. 1. She looked back at that single blip on the scan display. Small ship, 1 man, against 14 warships. And her admiral was afraid. "Commander Cole," she said into the open channel. "I would like to meet with you, face to face." Another pause. When Cole spoke again, there was something in his voice she had not heard before, something like respect. "Small, careful, real. Name the place," he said. She named it. Neutral ground, her shuttle. Halfway between the two fleets. Cole agreed without negotiating a single term. That upon told her something. She was not dealing with a bluff. She was not dealing with a display. She was dealing with a man who did not need to negotiate terms, because he was not worried about what she might do. She walked off the bridge and told herself she was not afraid. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was controlled. But somewhere in the back of her mind, something that her tutors had never managed to teach her was finally starting to form. It felt a great deal like understanding how wrong she had been. The shuttle was small. Mira had chosen it deliberately. Small spaces gave her less room to retreat, and she had decided before she left the Valorath that retreat was not what she wanted to do. She sat at the single table bolted to the center of the cabin. 2 chairs. Across from her, the door to the docking seal. The docking light went green. The door opened. Garrett Cole stepped through, and Mira's first thought was that he looked ordinary. That was the wrong word, but it was the one that came. He was tall, wide through the shoulders, with the kind of stillness that did not come from trying to be still. His hair was dark and cut short. His eyes were gray. He wore no insignia, no rank markers, nothing ceremonial. His suit was the kind of deep, utilitarian black that said function before everything else. He looked like a man who had not thought about how he looked in a very long time, and did not miss doing so. He sat down across from her without being invited, not rude, just practical. "Princess," he said. "Commander," she said. She had prepared an opening. 3 different openings, in fact, each calibrated for a different kind of opponent. She had been doing this since she was 12, reading people, finding leverage, using position and language to control a room. Cole looked at her with gray eyes that were paying close attention and said nothing. She used the first opening. "You claim the Drift Corridor falls under the Harrow Accords. I'm prepared to accept that there may be a genuine legal dispute here. I'd like to resolve it diplomatically." "Good," Cole said. She waited for him to continue. He did not. "That would require your government to agree to a joint review of the territorial boundaries," she said. "Earth Interstellar Authority already filed for that review 14 months ago," Cole said. The Keth Empire's legal office accepted receipt of the filing and then stopped responding. 14 months of silence, that's when they sent you. Mira felt her prepared openings dissolve. "I was told the corridor was uncontested. You were told what someone needed you to believe to get a royal inspection tour into contested space. A royal presence would have made the claim harder to challenge diplomatically. They were using you." She held his gaze. "That's a significant accusation against my own government." "It's a significant thing that your own government did." He said it without anger, without satisfaction. Like a man reading the results of a test he had already known the outcome of. Mira changed direction. She was good at changing direction. "You're the last warden." Something shifted behind his eyes. Nothing dramatic. A small, internal adjustment, the way a person looks when they hear the name of someone they lost. "Yes," he said. "How long have you been operating alone?" 11 years. "And in 11 years you've held this corridor by yourself." "It's not the only thing I do," Cole said. "But when someone crosses into the buffer zone, yes, I respond." She studied him. His face gave her very little. He was not performing calm. He was calm. There was a difference she had learned to spot, and this was not performance. "The modifications," she said. "What do they actually do?" Cole looked at her for a moment, not deciding whether to answer, deciding how. "I heal faster than a normal human," he said. "I process information faster. I can operate on minimal sleep for extended periods. My reaction time is outside the normal human range." He paused. "My ship's systems are integrated with my nervous system directly. When I fly, I'm not operating controls. I'm thinking and the ship responds." Mira was quiet for a moment. "And there were once 47 of you." "Yes. What happened to the others?" The small internal adjustment again. A little deeper this time. "The border wars lasted 19 years, Cole said. The others didn't make it to the end." She sat with that. 19 years of war that had broken 46 people built to be unbreakable. And 1 man had come out the other side, and then spent 11 more years doing it alone, because there was no one left to do it with him. She had walked into this meeting expecting a standoff, a negotiation, She had expected to find leverage, something to take back to her advisors that showed she had handled the situation. There was no leverage here. There was only a man who had decided what he was going to do and had been doing it long enough that the doing of it had become the whole of who he was. "Commander Cole," she said, "I want to be honest with you." He raised one eyebrow a small fraction, waiting. "I didn't know about the Harrow Accords. I didn't know about the legal filing. I was told this was a ceremonial tour. I was told the humans had accepted the expansion declaration. I was told." She stopped, took a breath. "I was told a lot of things that appear to have been untrue." Cole nodded slowly. "I know. That's why I asked to talk instead of just blocking you. You could have blocked us without talking. Yes, you would have been within your legal right to. Yes. Then why talk first?" Cole looked at her directly. Not through her, not past her, at her. "Because you're 17 years old," he said. "And someone put you in front of 14 warships and pointed them at a problem they created and didn't tell you what the problem actually was. You deserved a chance to understand what was happening before I made it impossible for you to back out." She felt something crack, very slightly, behind the composure she had been building for years. Not visible, just internal, a fracture line in something she had thought was solid. She was the princess of an empire. People deferred to her. People managed her. People moved her from position to position like a piece in a game they were playing, and smiled at her, and told her she was powerful, and made sure she never actually had to know what was happening. Garrett Cole had stopped everything to make sure she actually knew what was happening. She looked at the man across the table. 11 years alone, 46 people who hadn't made it. One ship with a nervous system where the controls used to be. "What happens now?" she asked. "That depends on what you decide," Cole said. "I can escort your fleet back to the boundary. No incident. No report filed. You go home, figure out who lied to you and why, and your government files a response to the legal review that's been waiting 14 months. He paused. "Or I can file the incident report, which will include the fact that the Keth Empire sent a royal vessel into contested space with the princess aboard while knowing the space was contested. That becomes a diplomatic event. It gets messy. And you'd rather it not get messy. I'd rather a 17-year-old who got used by her own government not have to spend the next 5 years cleaning up a diplomatic crisis." Mira looked at the table for a long moment. Then she looked up. "Escort us to the boundary," she said. Cole nodded once. No triumph, no relief, just acknowledgement. "All right," he said. He stood. She stood. They stood across the table from each other for a moment, and Mira thought about all the openings she had prepared, all the leverage she had been going to find, all the careful calculations she had walked in here intending to perform. "Commander," she said, "when I go home, when I find out who lied to me." She paused. "I'm going to need to understand this better. All of it, the accords, the history, what humans actually are in this part of space versus what I was told." Cole looked at her steadily. "Earth's interstellar authority has an open diplomatic line. When you're ready." She nodded. He walked to the door, stopped just before it. "Princess," he said, without turning around. "The people who put you here were counting on you not asking questions. They needed you to feel powerful enough not to question the position they put you in." She absorbed that. "And what are you counting on?" He looked back over his shoulder, gray eyes, quiet, careful. "That you're smarter than they think you are," he said. Then he was through the door, and the docking seal cycled. And Mira stood alone in a small shuttle, halfway between two fleets. And, for the first time in her life, she felt the full weight of the shape of her own ignorance. It was not a comfortable feeling, but it was a true one. And she was beginning to understand that true things, however uncomfortable, were the only ones worth holding. The Valorith turned around. The 14 ships followed. Nobody fired a shot. Nobody declared anything. The ships simply moved, in a long, slow arc, back toward the boundary line, and Cole's small black vessel held position a few thousand kilometers to the side, not escorting so much as witnessing. Mira stood at the observation port and watched his ship until it was a point of light, and then nothing. She spent the first hour of the return journey in her cabin, alone, going through documents. The Harrow Accords. The full text, not the summary she had been handed during her policy briefing. The legal filing from Earth's interstellar authority. The 14 months of correspondence sent to the Keth Empire's legal office. Each message received and acknowledged and then not answered. The people who had signed those acknowledgments were people she knew. People who had sat at her family's table. People who smiled at her in hallways. She closed the documents. Opened them again. Read further. By the third hour she had a list. 6 names, people who had known. people who had prepared the briefing materials for her tour, people who had shaped the information she was given into a version of reality that served a territorial strategy rather than serving her. She thought about what Cole had said. They were counting on you, not asking questions. She sent a message to her father, the Emperor. Not through official channels. Through a private encryption key he had given her when she was 12, telling her it was for emergencies only. She had never used it before. She used it now. The message was short. She told him where she had been, what had actually happened, what she had found in the documents, the 6 names. Then she put her tablet down and looked at the stars outside the observation port for a long time. On the other side of the corridor, one man in one ship was doing the job of an organization that no longer existed, because there was no one left and the job still needed doing. He had built something over 11 years. Not power, not empire, just reliability. The certainty that when the line was crossed, he would be there. That was it, that was the whole thing. And it had been enough to stop 14 warships. Not firepower, not threats, not politics, just the certainty of his presence and the reputation of what he was. She thought about the kind of person that took to keep showing up year after year alone, with no organization behind you and no one coming to replace you because you had decided the thing was worth doing. She was 17 years old and the heir to 9-star systems, and she had been moved from place to place her entire life, like a piece on someone else's board. She thought, that is going to stop. Her father's reply came 4 hours later. 2 words, I know. And then after a pause that she imagined contained a great deal of complicated feeling. Come home. She was going home. But not the same way she had left. She picked up her tablet again and opened the diplomatic contact database. Earth's Interstellar Authority. There was a section for direct diplomatic inquiries from recognized foreign heads of state, or their designated representatives. She was not yet a head of state, but she was a designated representative of one. And she had just conducted a very unofficial first contact with the last warden in known space. She started writing. It took her a long time to get the tone right, not formal enough to be empty, not informal enough to seem naive, honest, direct. Acknowledging what had happened without performing contrition, she did not fully feel. Because what she felt was not guilt but clarity, which was different and more useful. She wrote, Commander Cole gave me information I was not given by my own advisors. I intend to act on it. I am also aware that this letter is, in some sense, the first honest communication between our governments in 14 months, which is a problem I intend to help fix. I do not know yet what my formal position will be or what I will be authorized to offer. I know only that the conversation in the shuttle was the most useful one I have had in a long time, and that I would like there to be more of them. She read it back, changed one word, read it again, sent it, then she went to find Admiral Vane. He was in his office, which was small and neat, and smelled of the particular kind of formality that people surrounded themselves with. When they were trying to look like they had nothing to hide, he stood when she entered. Protocol. He had always followed protocol perfectly. She sat across from him and asked him directly which of the 6 names on her list had given him his orders. He told her. She had not expected him to, and for a moment she just sat with the surprise of it. Then she understood. He was afraid. He had been afraid since Cole's ship appeared on the scans, and the fear had not left him. And now she was asking questions with the calm directness of someone who already had most of the answers. And he did not have enough courage left to lie. She thanked him. She stood. She told him he would be relieved of command when they reached the boundary and that she would be recommending a formal inquiry. He nodded. He sat back down. He looked like a man who was relieved it was over. She left his office and went back to the observation port. The stars outside were the same stars. The corridor was behind them now. Somewhere in it, a single black ship was returning to whatever holding position it maintained. One man, one job, 11 years. She pressed her hand against the observation port glass and felt the faint cold of space on the other side of it. She was going home to a throne room full of people who had decided what she knew and what she did not know, who had managed her like a prop and called it education. She was going home to have a very difficult conversation with her father, who had replied I know to a message that should have surprised him, which meant he had not been entirely ignorant of what was happening and had let it happen anyway, which was a different kind of problem. She was going home to deal with 6 names on a list. None of that felt like a game anymore. It had never been a game. That was the thing she understood now. It had always been real. The stakes had always been real. She had just been kept carefully away from the reality of them. Wrapped in ceremony and protocol. and the comfortable illusion of power, until a man with gray eyes and no insignia and one ship had decided she deserved to know what was actually happening. She owed him something for that, not debt. Debt was transactional, something different. The thing due someone who had treated you like you were capable of handling the truth when everyone around you had decided you were not. She was going to be worthy of that. She was going to figure out what that actually meant. And then she was going to do it. The ship moved through the dark, and the stars passed. And Mira Solen, princess of some 9 systems, stood at the observation port and let herself be changed by the weight of what she now knew. The palace on Keth Prime was built to impress, and it did. 300 years of accumulated grandeur, halls wide enough to march armies through, stazelings with scenes of conquest and glory, staff who moved through it all with the smooth invisibility of people trained since childhood to be present without being noticed. Mira had grown up in it. She had always thought of it as home. Walking through it now felt different. She kept noticing the paintings, the conquest scenes, the things they chose to celebrate. Her father met her in the small audience chamber, not the formal throne room. That was a choice. The small chamber was for family, not ceremony. She took that as a good sign. Emperor Devon Solen was 63 years old, still straight-backed, still carrying the particular gravity of someone who had held absolute authority long enough to stop thinking about what it felt like. He looked at her when she entered, and she saw him taking her measure, which was something he rarely bothered to do. She sat across from him without waiting to be invited. He raised one eyebrow. "You've been looking at me differently since you walked in," he said. "I've been thinking differently since I walked out," she replied. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Tell me what happened," she told him. All of it. The scan contact, the voice on the channel, the meeting in the shuttle, Cole, the documents, the 6 names, Vane. Her father listened without interrupting. He was very good at listening. She had always thought that was one of his genuine strengths. He could absorb a great deal of information and sit with it without reacting until he had processed it fully. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. "I knew there was a legal complication," he said finally. "I did not know the full scope of it, or that the legal office had simply stopped responding to the filing. But you knew enough to say I know when I messaged you." He nodded slowly. "I knew the tour had been planned by people who had interests in establishing presence in the corridor. I let it proceed because the argument I was given was that a royal tour was a soft demonstration of established claim, not a military provocation. That argument left out the Harrow Accords." "Yes," he said. "It did." She looked at her father, 63 years old, emperor since 31. 32 years of people managing the information he received, framing problems in the shapes that served their purposes, surrounding him with the same comfortable illusion of control that they had built around her. The realization arrived quietly. He was managed, too. Not the same way, not as completely, but managed. "We need to answer the legal filing," she said. "Yes. And we need to have a conversation with Earth's interstellar authority. A real one." "You've already started that conversation," he said. There was something in his voice she could not quite read, not disapproval. Something closer to assessment. "I sent a personal message to their diplomatic office," she said. "Not on behalf of the Empire. I was careful about that." "You were," he agreed. "And yet the fact that you sent it at all will be noticed." "Good," Mira said. "It should be noticed. Someone should have sent it 14 months ago." Her father looked at her for a long moment. "The 6 names," he said. "I want them removed from any position where they have access to information briefings for the throne," she said. "And I want a formal inquiry into how the briefing materials for my tour were assembled." "You're asking me to investigate people who have been part of this court for decades. I'm asking you to investigate people who used your heir as a prop in a territorial gambit and didn't tell her what she was walking into." The room was quiet. Avon Solen looked at his daughter. Mira held the look and did not soften it. "All right," he said. She let out a breath, slowly, so he did not see it. "There's something else," she said. He waited. "Cole, the last warden. He's been operating alone for 11 years, enforcing the Harrow Accords and the buffer zone provisions. Because there's no one else to do it. He's one man. If something happens to him, the whole framework he's been maintaining becomes unenforceable." "That is a human problem," her father said carefully. "It is also a stability problem for this region," Mira said. "The drift corridor isn't the first place where the buffer zone provisions matter. If Cole is gone and there's no enforcement mechanism, the next territorial dispute doesn't end with a quiet conversation in a shuttle. It ends with something that makes paperwork for a decade." Her father studied her, You've thought about this on the way home. Yes. What are you proposing? Mira had rehearsed this part. Not the words. The position. The clarity of what she actually believed versus what she was prepared to argue. I'm proposing that when I talk to Earth's interstellar authority, one of the things I ask is whether there's a framework we could support. Not militarily, not a treaty obligation. Something that acknowledges that the wardens served a function that mattered to regional stability, and that the loss of that function creates risk for everyone. Devon was quiet for a long time. You want to tell humans we value what they built. I want to tell humans we value stability, Mira said, which happens to mean valuing what they built. He turned away slightly, looked at the painting on the far wall. Another conquest scene, an older one. Ships from 3 centuries ago, small and primitive, but the posture of the figures in the foreground was the same as always. Victory, dominion. I have spent 32 years, he said quietly, being told that the Empire's strength is its primary asset. That projecting strength prevents conflict. I know, Mira said. And one man with one ship just turned 14 of our warships around without firing. Yes. He was quiet again for longer this time. Make your contact, he said finally, with the authority. Do it carefully. Don't promise anything the Empire hasn't agreed to, but make the contact. He paused. And when you have a response, bring it to me. She nodded. Stood Mira, he said. She stopped. The warden, her father said. What did he want? When you talked to him, what did he actually want out of that conversation? She thought about gray eyes. The quiet that was not performance. The choice to explain rather than simply block. For me to understand what was actually happening, she said. That was it. Just that. Her father absorbed this slowly, the way he absorbed things that took him by surprise. He didn't want anything for himself. No, she said. I don't think he operates that way. She walked out. Behind her, she heard her father turn back to the painting, or away from it. She did not look back to see which. The hallway was long and painted with glory. She walked down it thinking about a man who had spent 11 years alone, choosing to explain instead of demonstrate, and what it meant that she had never once, in 17 years of education in this palace, been taught that that was strength. She was going to learn it now, even if she had to teach herself. The reply from Earth's interstellar authority came 12 days later. It was formal. Correct. Diplomatic in the way that covered all the required distance without giving anything away. But at the end of the official text, below the signature of the authority's Foreign Contact Division Director, there was an addendum. 3 lines, no official header, no formal language, it said. Commander Cole told us about the conversation. He does not send reports lightly. The fact that he sent one about you should tell you something. We are interested in the contact you have proposed. Mira read it twice, then she set it down and picked it up again. Cole had sent a report about her. A man who had operated alone for 11 years, with no oversight, no organization above him, doing a job because it needed to be done, had sat down and written a report because he thought she was worth mentioning. She sent a response to the authority the same day. Formal this time, requesting a diplomatic meeting within the agreed framework to discuss the boundary review and related matters. She cited the Harrow Accord specifically. She copied her father's Foreign Affairs office. Then she sent a second message, short, personal, not through diplomatic channels, to Cole, directly. She had found the contact address in the authority's public directory, under a section titled Warden Division, which had one entry. She wrote, I read your report summary. I am told you do not send reports lightly. I am working on deserving that. Progress is slow, but it is happening. She did not sign it with her title, just her name, Mira. His reply came 6 days later. She had not expected a reply. She had sent the message because it was the honest thing to do, not because she expected anything back. It was 4 sentences. Progress being slow is normal. Progress stopping is the problem. You haven't stopped. That's what matters. She pinned it to the edge of her desk where she could see it from her chair. The formal diplomatic process took 8 months. It was slow, complicated, occasionally frustrating, and full of the particular kind of legal friction that happened when 2 governments tried to agree on what had been true for the past 14 months and what they were going to do about it. Mira was involved in every meeting she could get herself into. Some of them her father arranged. Some of them she arranged herself, with a quiet persistence that eventually stopped being questioned and became simply part of how things worked. The 6 names were quietly removed from their positions. 3 of them resigned. 3 were reassigned to posts without sensitive access. The inquiry found what Mira had expected it to find. A small group of people who had decided that the territorial strategy was more important than the accurate information they owed the throne, and had managed their briefings accordingly. It was not the last time something like that would happen. Mira understood that now organizations did this. Groups of people decided what the people above them should know, shaped it into the form that served their purposes, and called it service. The only defense against it was to ask questions, and to keep asking them, and to notice when the answers were too smooth. She started asking more questions. About everything. Not combatively. Just persistently. What is the source for this? What did the other side say? What does the document actually say, versus what you're telling me it says? Her advisors found it slightly exhausting. She did not apologize for this. The boundary review concluded in month 9. The drift corridor was formally designated as part of the buffer zone, under joint monitoring provisions. The Keth Empire did not lose territory. They agreed to shared governance protocols. It was a compromise, and it was a better outcome than where they had started. On the day the agreement was signed, Mira was in her father's office watching the formal transmission from the authorities' signing chamber. Her father sat at his desk. She stood at the window. When the transmission ended, Devon Solen was quiet for a moment. 9 months ago, he said, we had a fleet in the corridor and a legal dispute we were pretending didn't exist. Yes, Mira said. And now we have a joint monitoring framework and a working diplomatic channel. Yes. He turned his chair slightly to look at her. The authorities' representative, Director Liang, she mentioned to our ambassador that the process moved faster than they expected. She said there was someone on our side who seemed genuinely interested in getting it right, not just in winning. Mira did not say anything. I'm told she meant you, her father said. I was trying to be useful, Mira said. You were, he said, quietly. With the weight of a man who was revising something he had believed for a long time and finding the revision necessary. You were very useful. She looked out the window at the spires of the palace, at the city below, at the sky above it, which was the same sky she had looked at from the observation port of the Valorath, except that now she knew more about what was in it, and who was in it, and what they were actually like. She thought about Cole, 1 ship, 1 job, 11 years. She thought about the report he had filed about a 17-year-old princess who had asked to understand what was happening and then gone home and actually tried to fix it. She turned from the window. I want to talk about the Warden program, she said. About what Earth would need to rebuild it, and whether there's a role for Keth resources in supporting that. Her father looked at her. That would be a significant commitment, he said. Yes, she said. It would. He held her gaze for a long moment, the Emperor's calculation running behind his eyes, measuring cost and benefit, political exposure, the reaction of the court, the shape of the thing on a larger map. Then he said, Write the proposal. She nodded, turned back to the window. Somewhere out in the buffer zone, a single black ship held its position, 1 man, doing the job because it needed doing, because someone had to, because the alternative was to leave it undone. She was not going to leave things undone, not anymore. That was the thing she had learned from him without him ever meaning to teach it. Not how to fight, not how to threaten, not how to demonstrate power in ways that filled paintings on palace walls. How to show up, how to keep showing up, how to treat the thing in front of you as real and worth doing even when no one was watching and the doing was hard, and there was no ceremony to make it feel important. She was 17 years old, and she was going to be emperor one day, and she was finally, for the first time, beginning to understand what that should actually mean. The stars were outside, and they were full of life, and she had work to do.